All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is Tim McDonald coming to you with another episode of Advocacy at Work. And today I am so lucky to be joined by a friend of mine, Casey Shimanski. How you doing, Casey?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. And, it's, I know most people won't think of you probably as an advocate, but I definitely do because of all you do. But before I just say anything, let me have you kind of introduce yourself and your connection to advocacy and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. My name is Casey Shimanski. I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, and I am a 16-year volunteer and fundraiser for the St. Baldrick's Foundation, fundraising for children's cancer research. And for the past 8 or 9 years, I forget what number we're on now. I've also been going bald for the cause every March. So we have another shave coming up at the end of March. All this hair will go away once again. And that's been keeping me busy for the past couple decades now.
Yes, and you guys are one of the top teams, I believe, too, right?
Yes, yeah. I am a 8-year top fundraiser for St. Baldrick's, and then our team is also an 8-year top fundraising team. So we are closing in on $200,000 raised for children's cancer research, which is pretty amazing. So the first year I raised $600, and I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. And now here we are, 16 years later, still at it and chipping away at those numbers.
Yeah. And so now I don't believe you have any connection to cancer, but why are you doing this? What drew you into doing this?
Yeah, so our family definitely has had some losses to cancer over the years, but the main loss that most folks tie us to is the loss of my younger sister Kelly, who passed away not from cancer, which is a common misconception given our work with St. Baldrick's. But we actually lost her in 2004. She was just 18 years old. We actually never learned what caused her to be sick. She just had sort of flu-like symptoms and some things that actually have mimicked certain friends and connections I've made over the years who did get cancer diagnoses, but we never got that diagnosis for her. It was just a multiple organ system failure, and they could never pinpoint it to one specific thing. So that loss is what was sort of the catalyst for us to really give back in a variety of ways. My youngest sister is a marathon runner as well, so she also does a lot of fundraising for a variety of organizations. Both of us working for in memory of Kelly.
Well, that is amazing. I'm just kind of curious, how did you kind of settle on, St. Baldrick's as the organization that you were going to support?
They found me many years ago in a previous lifetime of mine. I was a photographer, mostly wedding photographer, but I did families and portraiture as well. And there was an event that was taking place in 2011. They were looking for an event photographer, and sort of 6 degrees of separation, they found me. So I became that event's photographer for 7 years. A lot of the photos that I took were featured sort of globally for St. Baldrick's, depending on the year and sort of where we landed. And that really got me engaged with the organization. I showed up that one event back in 2011, learned the realities of children's cancer. And, I think most people go into it thinking it's a rare thing. It's really not that rare. Every 2 minutes worldwide, a child is diagnosed. So, in the time we're taking here, multiple kids will unfortunately be diagnosed. And so when that reality sort of, hit me on that day, and watching all these amazing women and men shave their heads and go bald that day, and photographing that really just activated something in me. I saw 2 women go bald that day, and I thought I could do that. I did not do it that day because I was just the photographer. The next year I brought a friend back, and in 2013 we actually started Team Live Out Loud, where my dad and my now husband we're just dating at the time. We're the first 2 to go bald, and I had made a promise to go bald the year after we were married. So we made them wait a few more years, but then we kind of made it all one big weekend, and that's sort of how we landed up here.
So I guess before I kind of dive into some more questions that I have based upon what you've shared already, one of the big things I like asking just to kind of set a framework as we start using the word more, how do you define advocacy?
Yeah, it's a word I had to get used to. It was not something that I think I adopted or even used until maybe the past 5 years. But for me, it's really just showing up continuously for a cause, and usually that cause is something you're quite passionate about. But it's the consistency part of it. It's yes, I know the facts and the stats, and I can kind of rattle off numbers, but it's the heart behind it and why it's so important and why this cause needs attention.
Wow, I love that. I think you're the first one who actually used the word consistency in defining advocacy, but I truly believe that. And for those of you who know me, I have a tattoo on my arm that says, let the world feel your heartbeat. And just like you just described consistency, if our heart stops beating, we stop living.
Yep.
And same thing with every action that we take in our advocacy efforts.
Yep.
So.
The number one question I think I've gotten over the years is how do you raise that much money?
Yeah.
And it's consistency. I think people want the easy answer of like, I just ask people for money and it shows up. I would love for that to happen, like big checks rolling in. That would make my work a lot easier, but it's the consistency, it's the community aspect of it. It's, showing up, it's doing the work. And most people don't want to hear that. They want the easy answer, and there's not one.
So I know I really appreciate you sharing this because I think it's a common problem, just not in advocacy, but in life in general. Like people see results of somebody and what they're doing and think, I want that. And then they start and it's like they don't see anywhere near the same results and get frustrated, just stop and quit.
Yep.
So, I know you briefly touched on when you first started, but what was that amount again where you're at now compared to, and how did that kind of keep growing, and what lessons did you learn along the way that kind of helped you kind of continue to expand and grow the amount that you're able to raise?
Yeah, great question. I am actually really terrible at asking people for money specifically, which people look at me now and say, no, that's not true. But going back to 2011, Casey, yeah, asking for $5 was a lot. It still is, and so I think that's something that I know, especially in today's world, asking for $5 is a lot. I'm not doing that lightheartedly. I do try and put a little bit of a lighthearted spin to it because it is a heavy topic. It is heavy work to be doing. So I have to try and make it fun when and where I can. But I also want people to recognize, I understand $5 is a lot when, you're struggling yourself. But for me, it's also the world is, could be on fire, is on fire. And kids are still getting cancer. So we still need to put that work in. And so for me, it was the first year, we're just kind of, let's see what we can do. I really went into it with zero expectations. And I raised $600. I didn't even shave or cut my hair or do anything that year. I was just volunteering and photographing again. And then I think as a team, so that would be, I think we had a team of maybe 5 or 6 that year. We raised maybe 2,000 or 3,000. That might be an overextension. It was a relatively small number. But it was kind of that little lightning spark of like, okay, we're onto something here, and I don't know what we are. I don't know what we're doing yet. But in showing up every year, it was just kind of, let's see what we can do this year. Knowing we were a small team, knowing that it was primarily all men who were doing it. I will also say the number one hardest person for me to get to shave is bald men for some reason. I've had more success with women, and they're just all in on it. But through the years and sort of building the story, the use case, consistency, again, reminding people every single year around the same times of, hey, this thing we did last March, it's coming back up again. So I usually say I start the fundraising around September for Children's Cancer Awareness Month. We kind of tack it into some of the holiday, like Giving Tuesday, that sort of thing, but we're pretty light throughout the holiday season. And then I've teased people for many years that come January 2nd, I'm back at it. Like we're hitting the ground running until shave day, whenever that is. It's usually late March. It could be early March. But just kind of showing up, reminding folks, it's a lot of social posts. I do a lot of social content creation and things like that in my professional career. So translating a lot of those skills into what I do for St. Baldrick's as well. Blog writing, videos, podcasting, like all these things kind of tack into that. And it really has just been chipping away at it. I think 2015 was the most we had raised, and I think we hit 10,000 that year collectively as a group. And then I knew going into the year that I was going to shave. I had 19 inches of long purple hair in 2018. So we were engaged in 2017. People got very excited thinking I was going to shave like a month later. Said no. Like it was the promise was always the event after we were married. So we got married at the venue that we shave at, actually. They're a resort here in Florida. And I knew that year going into it, I was gonna go big. That was the year that I was like, we've put now, let's see, that was 2018. So we'd put 7 years into it. You know, I'd been reminding people, we'd been showing up. I wanted $20,000. This wasn't a little amount of hair that I was getting rid of. The purple part of it, while I did that because I loved it and I thought it was fun, it was also part of the conversation. But it was also reminding people that, like, in a matter of days and weeks, I'm going to go from that to walking around as a bald woman in society. So there's a little bit of that too, that just reminding folks that, like, that's not an easy thing to do. So I still, to this day now, you know, this will be my 8th or 9th shave going into it, and it's still not an easy thing to do. I think I make it look easy, so people think it's easy. It is not. So I have to constantly remind people it's not. It's not a I don't just get to ask people for money and have it show up. I have to keep chipping away at it. So we've continued to grow and rise. That year that I got rid of the 19 inches of hair, we actually raised 26,000. I tied that to everything. Like, we were literally getting married, and I had posts that were scheduled out to go live, like, as we said I do, like, reminding people, like, we are now married. This is a part of this whole weekend event. And just kind of, again, tying people into it that way. We had a very small, intimate wedding, but we tied people into it throughout that sort of, you know, extensive social storytelling campaign that I had. My husband had it worked into his vows, like, like we were going to be asking for money, you know, again, in a funny way, but it was also just part of how we sort of showed up that year. And then we just kept at it. The year that I did shave all that hair off, one of my friends, as I got off stage, was like, well, now what? And I hadn't thought of, you know, now what? I don't know. I guess we're going to do it again. And so we've done it multiple times since. But it is just a lot of showing up and again, sort of harnessing that energy that you built on from the year prior. And every year is really different. So I factor in sort of what's going on in the environment. When we had COVID, I factored that in. We were a little lucky that, like, March timeframe, most of our fundraising had been out of the way at that point. But it was still something we had to factor in, for sure, for the years after.
Yeah. You know, one thing before we, you know, I asked the next question, I just want to understand and have you explain, what is the relevance of shaving your head for
Yeah.
this?
A lot of it is, it's a conversation starter. And it is, really showing the kids that bald is beautiful. You have, you know, kids of all ages. And I think that's also a common misconception when you hear of pediatric cancer. You think of younger kids. I believe it goes all the way up to 19. So it's not just, you know, children, it's kids of all ages. And so you have, you know, girls of all ages, from high school to 2 years old, you know, losing their hair. And so showing them that bald is beautiful. It's actually one of my favorite looks, which I don't say lightly, because I know it is an emotional thing for folks to lose their hair, and not, mine is I get to decide. So that is a big thing. I had a friend who was battling breast cancer many years ago who came to me for advice on being a bald woman. And I said, well, I can only do so much because mine is, it's a choice, right? And so there's that level of it where you're not choosing this, and so you're going to have a different emotional journey than me. But certainly, I have great hat recommendations and beanie recommendations and all these things. But it is really just in showing, for me, women, and folks in throughout all of their journeys that, just because you're not the way, you don't appear the way society wants you to, you're still quite beautiful. It's all good. It will eventually grow back. For me now, like, this is unruly and I want it to go away. The buzz cut is my favorite. I just wish I could do that, but I have to grow it out to shave it. So that's my journey though. So
Well, I was going to say it's, for a couple years during my chemo, I actually had a shaved head too. And I actually enjoyed being bald, where I know typically most people don't. And a lot of, especially I would say females, have a bigger time making the adjustment to it than men do.
Yep.
But you made an interesting thing. Didn't you say that most men were like hesitant to shave compared to women?
Yeah. I have my suspicions on this, and I've expressed it to them. Because these are not men in treatment or anything like that. They are just routinely bald men. And I'm like, you don't even have to, just grow what you can grow, and then you shave it off, and you go back to being bald. I've actually given up on asking bald men to join the team because they always just disappear. And I'm like, yes, I'll go ask a woman. We'll get this stuff done. But we've had, I think, 4 or 5 women join the team. My mom shaved. I've had best friends shave. I have a couple that want to do it in the future. A lot of times they'll tie it to like big life events. So for my mom, it was the 15th anniversary of us losing Kelly, is when she shaved. And she's actually joining the team this year, just as they have a new thing called a trimmy. So you don't have to go bald. You can just trim 8 inches off of your hair. And she's been growing it since she shaved, so it's quite long. And my sister will also be joining as a trimmy, not a shavy, because people have been after my youngest sister's hair forever. And she's rightfully so. She's going to keep it, but we've got her on the team this year as a trimmy. So there's a lot of different ways too, I think, that you can give back. It's not just, I've told people over the years, I don't need your hair, actually, I need your money. And the hair is a nice to have, and if you want a haircut, then great. But I'm really after your $5 and your Starbucks money.
So we've talked a lot about like raising money and fundraising, and just to put it in context, I define advocacy in 4 different buckets. One is awareness, one is fundraising, one is legislative, and one is research. And so we've really been focused on the fundraising, which I really enjoy because you're my first guest that has really focused on the fundraising aspect of it. But I'd have to imagine, and you mentioned this a couple times as you were sharing some of your story, that you're creating awareness at the same time.
I'm doing a little bit of all of that. But yeah, the awareness part is huge. That is absolutely the first step of all of this. So I'm glad you have that framework built, because you're bringing me back to the very beginning, which we kind of touched on, right? It's the awareness of every 2 minutes a child is getting diagnosed with cancer. 1 in 5 won't survive. Of those that do, an overwhelming majority of them will have lifelong disabilities, disorders, diseases of some kind. And a lot of that is because of the harsh treatments they're having to get. The other thing that I was not aware of is that a lot of times children are treated with adult chemos and radiations. So it's, to put that in sort of you would not walk into the grocery store and get adult Tylenol for your child, right? Like they have children's medications that are made for smaller bodies. And so that's something that this research is looking to do. Children's cancers are also very, very different. I think there's 27 of them. I hope I have that number right, but there's a variety of them. And a lot of them are not, you kids don't smoke, kids don't drink, like, so they're not getting them from sort of things that they're doing or experiencing yet. So a lot of this research is going into funding better, safer treatments that will extend their lives, so that they're not looking at X amount of years, but they're able to go into their 70s healthy. um, and so I've raised that awareness. I remind people all the time about that. Like I said, I can drop those numbers at the dime, but I also let people know I have our first email going out on the 4th, which is, what is that, tomorrow, for World Cancer Day, reminding people that, like, if you've gotten this email before, you're aware. Now we take action. So if you've known me for any stretch of time, you're aware of the realities. You've seen the posts. They're not new. they're at the ready pretty much year round. But you do still have to, like, bring people in. There are still people that just don't know, that have no idea. Even one of the things, I had my nails painted once for, I think, Children's Cancer Awareness Month. They're just orange, and I had like a little ribbon on one of them. And I was at a doctor's appointment, and the receptionist asked me, "Oh, I love your nails." And I said, "Oh, thanks. They're for Children's Cancer Awareness Month." And she said, "Oh, I didn't realize that was a thing." And we just got into talking, and I kind of shared some things. And by the end of the day, she had, $100 at my link. And I didn't even ask her for money. It was just like, "I'm doing this thing. Here's the page if you want more information," that kind of thing. Um, so there is a little bit of, you have to plant the seed to grow the actual flower.
I love that. I love that. And just I always like asking, because I know I think as human beings, we just are motivated by success, right? And failure doesn't really keep us motivated to keep going too often. But how do you measure your impact in what you're doing?
Um, that's a really big question. I obviously look at the numbers. Oddly, I am not a numbers person either. But the past 16 years have shown me that I actually am. So I kind of have the readouts on every year of how much we've raised, how much more we have to go until the next milestone. So I can usually sort of tell you, like right now we're about 5,000 from the actual 200,000 mark. So I use that to kind of motivate people. It's like, we're so close. Just need this much more. Which, when you've done, 5,000 is a lot of money, but when you've raised almost 200 over the course of 16 years, it's really not that much. So I knew, like, this year was going to be just really difficult, kind of taking in all of the things that are going on in the world. And looking at that, I said, okay, our goal this year is just going to get that 5,000. If we can do more, great. But I want that 5,000. I think that's doable. We've done way more in years past that were even difficult. Like the COVID years, we've really raised at least 10,000 every year since 2018. Sometimes we've doubled that. So it just kind of depends on the year. And so I kind of look at that, but I also, I've had to train myself to not just assume that, or not take that number for what it is, but also what I've put into it, right? Like I've put in at least 200 hours almost every year in that fundraising and in that work. I also have done other volunteer work that's tied into it. So I've done some of the, granted they were virtual years, but when we go to DC and ask for funding and things like that. So some of the legislation that we're working on as well. But kind of all of those things kind of compiled, and just really knowing that a lot of that is for me. Showing up and caring and doing what I can. And yes, there are nights that I'm tired and I've got full-time work and life and all those other things, but I can put out one more post, and see what comes of it. So I measure it in different ways. A lot of times is in how tired I am at the end of it. There's probably a measurement too after March, like how quiet I get after an event. Do I come back in April? Is it May? Is it June? Like there is a little lull after each event where it's like I've fueled it and we've pushed through it. And then I kind of go dormant for a little bit and recharge.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break from the heavy questions and get into some fun questions here. Just really quick, whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay.
Don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. But what is your favorite color?
Purple.
I was gonna guess that. And what is your favorite band or musician?
This is a tough one, but I'm gonna go with Billy Joel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is a place you've always wanted to visit but haven't yet?
I have a top three. I'm gonna go with Greece as the number one though.
All
Followed
right.
very closely by South Africa because I want to cage dive with great white sharks. I don't know why, but
Okay.
Greece first.
And what's one thing most people don't know about you?
Oh, that's a really big question. I'm going to tie this back to the work, but I would presume just that it's not as easy as it looks. Part of it. I think for all the things I do, I think I make them a lot easier and I look a lot easier than they are. And I have to remind people like it's actually not that easy. It's a lot of work.
Well, I remember back years and years ago, Dave Olson, who used to be at Hootsuite, gave a talk down at South by Southwest, and it was called the Tom Sawyer effect or something like that. But the message was, when you're building community, if you don't make it look like fun, people aren't going to want to participate. So you do
It's
a good
so
job
true, though.
of making it look easy, even though it's, I always tell people when they say that, well, that sounds like fun. And I'm like, well, it's work to get that to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah. It's kind of, I liken it to, I think there's a quote, is it Catch Me If You Can? I'm going to butcher this, but there's a quote about, I'm a Yankees fan. I grew up in the New Jersey area. And it's one of those, like, it only looks fun when you're winning sort of thing. So that kind of goes back to our earlier conversation too. Like, when you're struggling or when you just get in there and say like, I want to raise $20,000, but you haven't done anything prior to saying, I want to raise $20,000. It's not as fun because it doesn't come easy. It's, there's 10 years before that. It's that overnight success sort of story. I think that people get sidetracked on.
Yeah. And what would, if there's just one thing that you could see happen, forget about like, your bandwidth, resources, anything like that. What would you like to see happen?
For children's cancer research,
Well, anything in your work that you do.
I would obviously love to find a cure. I would for all of them. It takes a lot of work to raise even the small amount of money that I have, and I say small. We just said 200,000. Like that's a lot of money. I don't want to like shortchange that, but I think the stat is, for every $1,000 you raise, you fund a potentially life-saving clinical trial. So that's not a small amount of work, but we could be doing so much more with the funding, with the backing, with the legislation. I unfortunately do not have a ton of money, so like that shortchanges it. But like I think, I look out in the world and I know there's a lot of money out there. So it's like put it to good use and let's find some cures and better science and research and all these things that give kids their childhoods back. They shouldn't be in hospitals,
Yeah. And what, I know you have your fundraising page up for your team. Is that something that's up year round, or if people like and I'll share it in the post and everything.
Absolutely.
But how can people support you even if it's kind of in those quiet times that you talk about,
Yes.
like after March?
I love this question. It's my favorite one. Luckily, I have a name that you could Google pretty easily and probably land on any of those pages. But yes, that link is active year round. The second I switch it out for the new one, that / Captain Casey goes to the next year's event. So essentially, if you landed on a post from 2017 with that link, it would still go to this year's fundraising. So, or at least to St. Baldrick's. And they're sort of I'm very lucky that St. Baldrick's has been a great organization to work with and great to partner with. So I just have a wonderful contact there who I message and say, hey, can you help me get all of this aligned? And yeah, so they've been phenomenal. But yes, that link, no matter the day or the time or the place that we are at in fundraising, will go to us.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Advocacy at Work, Casey. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.